Okay, I will start with a small introduction of winglobally. In the meanwhile, we wait some people that is going to connect, I'm sure, in the next minutes. I can see many names of the winglobally, but also other names I don't know. So I want to introduce what is winglobally. Globally is a global network of trusted international independent accounting and tax firms. We cover more than 35 countries in Europe, but also in Asia and in the Americas. Globally services include tax, accounting, payroll, and other business activity consulting. In case you want more information, you can go in our website, and you can find us also in LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm Riccardo Marinelli, the senior partner of LG Consulting, Italian company. And I'm partner from 2019 of this company, and I'm also vice president of the winglobally group. We are located in Rome. We set up in the year 2000, so we are 23 years old, we are. And okay, we are ready to start, I think, now. Just another information, this is, I think, the third webinar of the winglobally group. There will be a fourth in this year in December. The friends from the Netherlands of Bridge are organizing it. Will take place in December. We will communicate to you the date and the topic that will be, in any case, on tax. So, another information, this webinar is recorded, so you can ask to us the registration and we will forward it to you, or probably we will post it in the social or in our website. Last thing, before we start, your questions, I'm sure there will be some. Please take note and write your question in the chat at the end of the webinar. I hope that we will have 10 to 15 minutes free before 12, before noon, so that you can write your question in the chat. I will be more than happy to answer you at the end of the webinar. Okay, we can start with the slides. Okay, here we are. So, electronic billing in Italy. Why Italy? Because we are the first country which introduced this system in 2019. So this is the 5th year. And we have, I think, a good experience that we can share with our friends in every country, because very soon will be compulsory in many countries. Let's see what is the agenda of this webinar. I divided into 5 parts. At the beginning, I will make a small introduction. Then I will go to the Italian experience, explaining what's the invoice data flow, the consequences on the VAT returns, and finally your questions and my answers. So as I said, we are phasing this new system from January 19. This means that from the time being, all the VAT registered company business VAT owners in Italy are issuing their invoice electronically. They're using the exchange system. I will explain you how it works. And at the beginning, only the foreign countries invoice transactions were exempted, as well as the small VAT number owners. So we are using this method from January 19. How it works, very shortly. The invoice is generates an XML format file, which is decided by the government, so it's strict, cannot change, and is sent to the tax office through an exchange system of data. This automatically transfer the file, the invoice, from the seller system to the buyer system. There are 12 days of time from the date of the invoice to send electronically it to the client. Why 12 days? Because in Italy, VAT shall be paid by the 16th of the following month. So, of course, this term should be shorter. Then what happened lately in July 22, also the foreign active and passive transaction must be electronic in Italy. So how it works for the foreign sales, but the file must be converted into an XML file like the Italian one. Of course, the foreign client will not receive it, but the tax office, yes. Regarding the foreign purchase invoice, it's done through a creation of an electronic self-invoice. And again, this is to update the tax office database. We have a little bit more days, 15, for these kind of invoices. Then finally, also in July, the little VAT owners above 25K turnover are obliged to use electronic billing, and from January 24, even the small one, everyone will be obliged. So we can say that from January 24, the system is complete, absolutely complete, and no one has any exemption. Okay, yes, what is happening in the EU and why many of you are connected today to have an idea of what is going on in the next years. It's happening that EU is convincing themselves and the members that there is still a strong tax evasion, especially in the cross-border business transaction, which was estimated into 50 to 70 billion euro per year, so really a massive, big amount. And to fight the problem and simplify the monitoring, the EU realized that it's time to push to standardize and digitalize the processes of these transactions. And that's why every member is studying how to start the system in its country. There are many countries that promise to start in 2023, 2024. I saw many delays now because it's not easy, especially for the tax office to be ready to receive the electronic invoice. But I can say that in the next year, 25, 26, probably these are the two main years where every country will be probably obliged to start with this electronic invoicing system. Okay, let's go now into a practical example, because I really would like today to show to everyone some practical example, because in theory we all understand what is an electronic invoice, but it's different to understand how it is made, how it is received, what are the consequences, and the idea of leaving the paper invoice forever and talking only about XML files. So I prepared for you a couple of clips where you can hear my assistant that will show you how an invoice is generated, issued, and on the other side, how it is received. We take as an example our invoice, of course, is the easiest way. In particular, you will see our real estate company that owns our office that will issue an invoice of the September rent to our LG Consulting Studio Associato, which is the tax firm. So LG Consulting SRL is the real estate company. LG Consulting Studio Associato will receive the invoice for the rent of the month. I asked my assistant to send the clip. I hope you can see and hear the audio, and then we will get back in a few minutes, 3 or 4 minutes.
Creating a sales invoice simply involves copying into this form each element of the paper invoice. Let's see how this is done. There are mandatory data to input in the invoice, like the customer name, the invoice number. In this case, the software automatically suggests the numbers in order. The invoice date, the customer VAT number, fiscal code and address, the payment terms, and the payment method, wire, cash, etc. Let's fill the structure of the invoice. Many softwares allow to create the customer master data that is saved in the system, and it can be used for future times without the need to input again the data. The system also verifies the correctness of the data, and an alert appears if, for example, the VAT number input is incorrect. So the electronic billing allows verified and saved data of a customer. We input the description of the service that, in our example, is the office rent for September. Then we input the amount and the VAT to apply, that it is 22% in our case. We can also print the invoice in PDF in order to check that all the data are correct and if we want to save the file in our archives. The next and the last step is to send the invoice through the SDI, the tax office system. In our billing software, we can click Share and to choose if we want to send an email with a courtesy copy of the invoice to the customer, and then the invoice is sent to the client. Once the invoice is sent through the tax office system, it's not possible to amend it. So in the case the invoice should be wrong, it's necessary to create an electronic credit note and a new correct invoice. When we send an invoice through the tax office system, the SDI will make the related checks on our document. And if there are some formal errors, such as an invalid VAT number of the customer, the tax office system declines our invoice, sending a notification. Our billing system also allows to send the sales invoice, once accepted by the tax office system, to our accounting system, so that we can register it in the VAT books.
Okay, let's go with the next one, the purchase invoice.
Now let's see how to import a purchase invoice. In this case, LG Consulting receives the invoice for the office rent of September. Once the invoice is accepted from the tax office system, the purchase invoice is available in XML format in the tax box of the customer. In order to facilitate the reading of the document in our billing software, we can see the invoices in PDF. Let's go to import the invoice received. From this section, I can see the details of the purchase invoice received. The only thing I can do is to save it and send it to our accounting in order to register it in the VAT books. If I think that the invoice is incorrect, for example in the amount or in the purchase order, the only chance is to contact the supplier requiring a credit note, but I'm obliged to register the invoice, even if this is wrong, since it has been accepted by the tax office system.
Okay, so as you have seen, the procedure is very simple, and it's very useful, especially on the purchase downloading side, because you have seen an example of one invoice which is automatically downloaded, but you can imagine if we are talking about hundreds or thousands of purchase invoice received in a month, that with only one click you immediately download all of them, and you only of course need to check them one by one. But this is really what is the most saving time we realize, because one thing is checking an invoice, one thing is data entry, and it takes much more time. A few words on the courtesy copy that you have seen, which is a sort of paper invoice because it's a PDF and you can send it to the client. This was used especially at the beginning in 2019 and 2020, that many people will still use it to have the paper in their hands. But now I would say is not used so much, even because that is not a valid invoice. The paper invoice has absolutely no value. The only one that counts is the XML file. That's very important to specify. I would like to show you then another important part, which is when I download an invoice on the VAT purchase book. You can see here this was done completely automatically, and because the file already contained every compulsory element of it, so it's able to populate all the data automatically. That is very important. Let's go on the next one. Yes. Okay, of course, so we will register the invoice in the VAT books. You can go to the next one. Okay, and you can see it now. Maybe it's little, you cannot see, but and there is only one, but this is the purchase VAT book, and you can see that the invoice is automatically booked LG Consulting 4,880 of VAT, and that's it. The VAT is automatically populated, the VAT purchase book. Okay, so these were the example. Now a few words on the invoice data flow. I think that most of you already understood how it works. So we start from the sender side, the supplier, the provider, which, as you can see, has made the invoice on its software. And when it's complete, it's done, they send it. They don't send automatically to the customer, that's the point, but they send it to the tax office. Why? Because, of course, the tax office wants, first of all, to register this invoice in their archives, because if they want to control tax evasion, they need to have every invoice in their database, of course. But they also make correction. They see if it's correct. Sorry, they don't make correction. They just look at the file if it is formally correct. So, for example, what happens if the VAT of the supplier is closed, you cannot issue it, but even if the client VAT is not anymore active because it was closed, for example, 2 years ago, you will see that the system will reject the invoice. As well as if there are important errors, so some data is missing or not current each other. So there is a first check of the tax office, and then finally, if everything is fine, is sent to the customer, who will find it in his so-called tax box. Every VAT owner in Italy has a tax box, and there is a specific menu where you find the invoice of your suppliers that will arrive now really in real time. At the beginning, 2019, it take 1-2 days, but now the system is really fast. It's like sending a message with your portable phone. It really arrive live, I would say. And that's very important, as I said, because it's very, the transaction issuing and receiving invoice is really quick. Okay, let's go now and take a look of what are the consequences on the VAT returns, because as I'm sure in every country, we are obliged to file VAT returns. In Italy, it's mandatory, both the quarterly VAT returns and also the annual VAT return. Concerning the quarterly VAT return, what is happening in Italy? That, of course, the office very quickly it's able to check if, for example, in the first quarter, January, February, March of this year, the data we have sent is correct, because they can match the data we send them with the data that they have in their archives, summing all the invoice. And so they can find out if there are mistakes, but especially they can find out if the company didn't pay the VAT. Because of course, if there is a VAT payable for one of these months, January, February, March, in my example, and they didn't receive the money, they immediately realize this and send you a letter that you probably missed the payment. And this happens very quickly, because I would say that in my example of the first quarter, in not in April, but in May or in June, you will receive the letter of the tax office that advise you about the missing of a payment, and propose, of course, within 30 days to pay with a small fine. Otherwise, after 30 days, the fine will be much heavier, 3 times heavier. So it's very interesting that this is this is a system to check very quickly if the payments of the VAT are punctual, are in line. Okay, let's go also now to take a look of the annual tax return. And I can say that in this case, it's even more interesting, because from 2022, the tax office started to send and propose to every VAT owner a pre-populated, pre-filled VAT annual tax return. And we did it. I was really curious to compare the VAT annual tax return that the tax office was sending to me with our VAT tax return that we prepared, of course. And I will show you exactly some example. Of course, we hide the names of the company and we leave only the numbers, the figures. But I would really share with you some example to let you have an idea. Okay, this is, for example, the 2 pages of the annual VAT return. They are regarding the sales. VE stands for sales in Italy. On the left side, where you can see bozza, which means sample, that's the VAT tax return made, pre-filled by the tax office. On the right side on the screen, you see our VAT. You see the character are a little bit different, but the lines are the same. As you can see in this example, the data there is the VAT on 22. Oh, sorry, we have a technical problem. Okay, so let's go to the next example. Okay, these are the same company, but the purchase invoice page. And again, as you can see, the data perfectly matches. So in this case, I only push a button and confirm. I could confirm the VAT, the tax office pre-filled annual VAT return, which is done. Let's make another example. Okay, I take another example of another company. This again is the pages where you can see the sales, VAT on sales. And again, the data perfectly matches, as you can see. The line on the VAT rate 22, we have some accepted transaction, and we have the total. And I would say that, in my experience, that on the sales side, 95% of the data perfectly matches. Sometimes, if they don't match, this is a tool to identify some mistakes that happened during the year. It can happen that the client was not, he thought that he sent an invoice, a sales invoice, but he didn't. For example, he didn't read the message of error that arrived from the tax office. So he was convinced that the sales invoice was sent, but it was not. And also the client didn't advise about this problem, because usually the client advises, but it can happen sometimes. And you immediately realize from this comparison of these two that a mistake took place. And so you can anticipate and try to fix the error, to issue the invoice late, pay a small penalty, and that's it. But in this case, again, the data matches. Then I make the last example where the data don't match, of course. This is the same company, but on the purchase side, of the pages of the annual VAT tax return, you can see that the rate of 4% matches. Also, the rate of 22 is exactly the same, while the line of the 10% VAT rate doesn't match. Why doesn't match? The tax office proposed 991 taxable basis and 99 of VAT, 10%. We have 0. The case is simple because in this case, 10% usually is a rate in Italy used for restaurants and hotels. And the VAT is not always deductible in this case. I would say that is in very little case deductible. For example, for business dinner or lunch in a company, the VAT is not deductible. And we knew that in this case, we were talking about this business lunch and dinner, and we didn't accept the deductibility of this VAT. So the line is 0 for us. Of course, the VAT office couldn't know if it's deductible or not. Even, for example, restaurant are VAT on restaurant invoices are deductible for travel agencies, because travel agency is their core business to pay restaurant and hotels for their guests. So they don't know. So they propose, and then we didn't accept this. So this makes you understand that probably it would never be possible an automatic annual VAT return, tax return, but it can help. It can help, and to make many double checks, controls, to be sure that the data are correct of what we are sending. Okay, so we're close to the end of our webinar, but of course I would like to highlight what are the pros and the cons of the electronic billing according to our experience. So let's start with number one, efficiency and transparency. Of course, this is understandable. The invoice will arrive in real time. There is the possibility of saving printing cost, postage cost, and the payments can be done faster, because all the invoice arrive quicker, and so they can be paid faster. There is a direct communication between the electronic billing system and the accounting software. Then we go to the automation. Of course, businesses are trying to automate and make repetitive, to avoid repetitive manual processes. And this means less errors, less mistakes, less invoice missing, and reduced personal cost, because indeed this saving of time in the posting, in the bookings, means for us that we can probably reduce personal costs or use the personal in other fields, in other activities. Also scalability, the billing system provides an easy scalability, can grow up fast. Security, this is important because the transmission of all the invoice goes through an encrypted method. So there is not anymore the possibility that the invoice can be opened by the postman or lost sometimes and opened by the people, because the flow is only electronic and encrypted, so very safe at this point of view. For fiscal audit, also fiscal audits are simplified, because first of all, because the tax office already got many data, so they don't disturb you to give them the data. And also during a tax control, having this data immediately available makes things easier and faster. So we talk about this time saving. We already said about that, and you have seen a practical case where it's very quick and fast to download, especially the purchase invoice. Of course, there is a lower environmental impact, less paper, less shipping, so less gasoline of the postman that are giving the invoice here and there. No more paper, so this is a good point. There are free of charge tools, because we will see in the cons the software cost, but to be honest, the Italian tax office provided a large number of tools, apps, softwares, which are completely free of charge. And so I would say that not for big companies, but the small one can try to do not spend anything and use only the tools provided by the tax office. So, last point, automating business process, improving level of digitalization of the companies, efficient relation between business and public administration, and payment, reduction of payment time of public administration. This is very important because, I don't know, in Italy, I don't know in the other countries, but in Italy, the payments of public administration usually are really slow. Can take also, I don't say months, but sometimes 1 year. They need a lot of time to take the invoice, control with the purchase order, and all this is done now automatically. So they are able to make short this time, and of course with a benefit for the companies. Okay, let's go now with the cons. As I said before, one of the cons is the software cost. Of course, every software house in 2019, but I would say before in 2018, prepare new software to be implemented in the system concerning the billing. And of course, they ask money for this, for the new software and for the annual fee that they ask usually. And that's for sure some higher cost. Second con is the staff training. I would say maybe this is the first because this was probably the bigger problem we faced because many staff is really used to have paper in their hands, and they're doing this job from 10, 20, 30 years, so it was not easy to change completely their mind and let them understand that paper is not existing anymore and has no value anymore. I remember my employees, they asked me for the first year to continue to print the invoice. And I said yes to them, but only for the first year. And so they had both the electronic invoice and the paper invoice, because it's not easy to mentally go into this changement. So, and also the procedure, showing them the cost, the training on the software, and some mistakes are done at the beginning. In Italy, if I remember correct, in the first 3 months, maybe they extend to a longer period, all the penalties, the fines were not applied, of course. But then they applied, so you had limited time to get used to this new system. Another con is the tight schedule, because of course, as I said, the invoice must be issued and sent within 12 days from the date of the invoice. This is a rather short time, and so it's not possible to backdate the documents anymore. Sometimes in Italy it happened, please backdate this invoice. 15, 20 days, not possible anymore. The maximum backdate you can do is 12 days. So on the 12th of the month, you can date an invoice the 1st of the month. So the schedule is really tight, but maybe this is also a positive point, because the clients understand that they can't ask us things that are impossible to do. 12 days and that's it. Storage cost, yes, this is another cost because the electronic invoice must be stored, and this is another software to be paid, even if, again, here also the tax office provide a free of charge system of storage. But of course, for big clients that want only one software, they at the end prefer to pay this extra cost to the software house, while respect having two different software for in accounting. Fix an error. Yes, my assistant Sarah before explaining you that when you push the button and the invoice is sent, that's a point of no return. So you can do anything. The only way that you can do, even if you want to change a single word in the description of the goods of the service, no way. You can't do it anymore. So the only way is a credit note, even for a description, I repeat, and issue a new invoice. So I can tell you that the number of the credit notes raised really a lot. Last point, less work for accounting firms. I would put a question mark maybe under this cons. But of course, there is less work, and maybe some of you can think that this is a problem because our clients can ask for a discount. You're working less, please give me a discount on your fees, which makes sense. What I can tell you from my experience is that just a little of my clients asked for these discounts, and I would say that in 90% of the case, I succeed in offering them some extra services for in other field. For example, many clients had a quarterly report, and I said, okay, I will give you a monthly report free of charge, paying the same fee of the quarterly report, even because at the 12th of the month, your sales and invoice of the client is in the system. So you have it. Probably you have to complete the other data with the bank cash movements, with the salaries, other stuff, but you really have most of the work done in a very short time, 12 of the following months. So you're able to send them this report even monthly, for example, and not quarterly. Okay, I think that the timing are correct. It's 11:46, just in time. So I rest for 1 minute and wait for your questions that you can write in the chat. It is the easiest way to catch your question and try to answer. Okay, as I imagine, many questions are immediately arriving. I hope I can answer to all of them, but I cannot guarantee. One question arriving is that in the invoice usually is needed to be the purchase order or the commodity code what happens if it's not in the invoice? It must be in the invoice. There is a specific field to populate with these codes, especially with the public administration. There are many of these codes that if you don't put it, they will not pay the invoice. So the invoice must be complete. If it's not, credit note and a new invoice. Let's go to the following question. Correction for uncollectible. Let me see, Sarah. Okay. No, there is, okay, Judith is asking what happens if the VAT number is invalid, as I said, is closed after 1-2 years. If I understand correctly, this cannot happen, because if the VAT is not active, you cannot generate or you cannot receive the invoice. 12 days. The EU decision is 2 days. I can say that EU, it's really something that is still ongoing, nothing will be decided. So many things can change. I show you the Italian experience, but I'm sure that the EU rules could be slightly different. I can say that 2 days is really a short time, so probably something in between will be the final decision, but nothing is written definitely at the moment. Do you approve purchase invoice before paying? How to manage the authorization? Well, I think it doesn't change much about this, because as you receive the paper invoice under your eyes and then start the authorization, now you receive the file. So as soon as you receive the file, you start the approving and authorization procedure. Another question, does the XML file contain all VAT transaction level data? Absolutely, yes. It's complete, including field where you can put notes and other stuff. In case of requesting a credit note, can you use the VAT deduction in the period? Yes, you can do it. Even if it's done lately, you can put it in the correct month. How does this affect the work of the VAT tax advisor? What tasks do they take now? If you mean tax advisor of the tax office, as I said, they have they don't disturb you because they make many controls in their tax office, and if they show up, it's because they need to know some extra information. But the tax audit are less. If you mean tax advisor, like internal tax advisor, I think that is not difference. They have maybe easier job because it's all automatic without paper, but only files and software. What do you mean by storage costs? Does not the tax agency store all the information, or do you mean it's not? Yeah, that is a point. Tax agency do not store. That's the problem. Or better, they store for them, but not for you. If you ask an invoice of 3 years ago, they have it, that they will not give it to you. So you have to provide by yourself to, I repeat, with your software house, or with another tool of the tax office, which is not their tool, it's another tool for the VAT owners, and you can use that one. Certain suppliers keep on sending courtesy PDF invoice. Sometimes it's necessary to have them because contain details needed for internal accounting purposes, but sometimes they are exactly the same. If they're exactly the same, can we avoid saving? I say that they should be exactly the same. They must be the same because the courtesy invoice should exactly copy the XML file. So if there are differences, it's not correct, because the courtesy copy must be the same. The content of the data the same, including the descriptions, the notes. So I can say that it's not necessary anymore to save them in the records. You save the records, as we said, on the software that you have and on the software where you archive the data, as we just said before. So no need anymore for the paper invoice, the PDF invoice, because they should be exactly the same of the XML file. The European sale list and interest report may be fully automatic now. Yes, of course, we can download many data again, so we save a lot of time. I repeat, nothing is automatic because you have to double check, but you save much time also on the interest reports. Okay. Okay, I think that is it. Maybe we have another question, but no, I don't think so. So we are 5 minutes in advance. I think that everybody will be happy about that. They can go to their job. And what I can say, I repeat, we will, if you want the recording of this webinar is available, just ask it. If you have other questions, you have my email or my assistant Sarah email, feel free to ask, not only to the Italian client, but especially for the foreign people, which maybe is more interested because it's something completely new. Was a pleasure for me to organize. Thank you very much. I received many thanks from you. Happy about that. And I repeat, feel free to ask if you have any other doubts. Bye bye.